and welcome to all top 5s. Fantastical creatures have dominated mythology all around the world for centuries, but some people have found what they believe is evidence that these mythical beasts exist. Here are 5 stories of supposedly real mythical creatures and their evidence. Number 5. Mermaids. Everyone knows the mermaid. Body of a human female, tail of a fish instead of her legs. They've been popular in literature for centuries, sometimes bad and sometimes good. They're not all female though, with a merman being the male equivalent. Despite their prominence in fairy tales, there have been a handful of supposed sightings of mermaids in recent years. One of the most famous is a video taken of a battered beach after a tsunami in 2004. The photographer scans the devastation, then spots something lying in the sand, giving us a really good close-up view of a pretty disturbing dead creature. This was actually debunked as a hoax not long after the video came out though. The supposed mermaid was just a piece of artwork by Juan Cabana, a modern-day taxidermy artist who creates weird-looking Frankenstein-like creations such as this. Another 2 videos from 2012 and 2013 showed what appeared to be live mermaids for all the world to see. However, it's hard to tell just from looking if this could be a real mermaid or just a human with a tail fin stuck on their feet, swimming past for a couple of seconds. However, it was simply part of an Animal Planet broadcast of fictional documentary show, Mermaids, though it did a good job of convincing many people mermaids had been captured on camera. In 2009 in Israel, dozens of people reportedly witnessed a mermaid swimming in the bay, doing tricks and jumping into the air like a dolphin. There's little video evidence for it, just this likely hoax, but the town council offered $1 million as a reward for proof of the mermaid, as yet unclaimed. So it seems some people took it very seriously indeed. In October 2016 in the UK, photos and a video of another supposed washed-up mermaid corpse appeared online. It's gruesome and particularly detailed, with its partially rotted insides showing through, and at the time I made this video, no one had debunked it. Could this finally be a piece of proof that mermaids, at least in some form, exist in Earth's waters? What do you think? Number 4. Cyclops. I've chosen this one because it's not often covered, but has a great theory behind it. I'm sure we're all familiar with the Cyclops, the lumbering giant with one eye that Greek hero Odysseus blinded in Homer's epic The Odyssey. That wasn't the only literary Cyclops, however. Hesiod, another Greek poet, featured a trio of Cyclopes, huge brutes each with a single eye. Euripides and Virgil also wrote about the legendary one-eyed monsters. It's a particularly striking mythological monster, however, and makes you wonder how the legend came about. A paleontologist, Athenio Abel, in the early 20th century had an excellent hypothesis. He suggested that the ancient Greeks on various Mediterranean islands may have found the skulls of dwarf elephants that roamed the lands in prehistoric times. These skulls are about twice the size of human skulls and feature a prominent central hole in what looks like the forehead. This was the nasal cavity that fed into the elephant's trunk, but the ancients may have believed it to be a central eye socket, understandable given how striking it is. Paired with the size of the skull, that naturally leads to a large humanoid creature with something in the middle of its face, so why not an eye? So it seems the Cyclops is debunked, but who knows, maybe there was some other inspiration for the ancient poems that wasn't as easily dismissed as just being an elephant. Number 3. Fairies. Perhaps even more popular than mermaids in old tales and legends are fairies. The term fairy is a really broad one that covers a wide range of mythological and fantasy creatures, though there are some similarities between most of these. A fairy is believed to be a magical creature, some kind of spirit. They are supposed to be tiny and often with a human appearance. Fairies are also generally believed to have the power of flight, although fairies with wings don't appear much in folklore, using magic to fly instead. Illustrations of fairies with wings came about in the Victorian times and was popularised then. Their definition has evolved over time, a collection of different folk beliefs from across the world, some good, some evil, some corporeal, some metaphysical. Whatever your definition of a fairy might be, there are people who believe they are real, and those who even claim to have evidence. The first and perhaps most famous piece of evidence, supposedly, for fairies is the Cottingley Fairies series of photographs taken by Elsie Wright and Frances Griffiths in 1917. The two young girls, 16 and 9, sent the photos out claiming they were proof of fairies in their garden. It quickly caught on, and many people believed that they were genuine, including the Sherlock Holmes author Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who was a spiritualist. For decades, the girls maintained that the pictures were of real fairies. However, in the 1980s, the pair came clean and admitted that they had cut out pictures from a children's book and propped them up with cardboard. Although Frances always claimed, even to her death, that this fifth image taken was genuine, even after admitting to faking the other 4. Who knows, could she have been telling the truth? A much more recent example in Mexico was from Jose Maldonado, a man who claims to have found and caught a fairy. He is quoted as saying, "I was picking guavas and I saw a twinkling. I thought it was a firefly. I picked it up and felt that it was moving. When I looked at it, I knew that it was a fairy godmother." He then went and put it into a jar of formaldehyde, as you do when you find a fairy, and charged people voluntary donations to come and look at it. Hundreds of people did, many of whom believed its authenticity. Now, I'm not saying it looks like a child's plastic figurine, but I'm really not convinced by that one. Number 2. Dragons. Even more entrenched in world culture, even today, are dragons, with examples in mythology from pretty much every continent on Earth. They've been in stories since ancient times. One of the most prolific continents is Asia, with its Chinese dragons, a striking and beautiful affair, known across the world and celebrated and revered for centuries. Could there be such creatures living in the mountains in East Asia? There are vast swathes of land pretty uninhabited and little explored. One example is of a dragon allegedly caught by a fisherman in Mongolia in 2014. The pictures feature the dragon covered in white fur, displaying horns, long whiskers, claws, and measuring over 20 feet long. It looks pretty lifelike and definitely channels that Chinese dragon vibe. Although, according to the myth-busting website Snopes, this same photo had been used alongside a story of a Malaysian farmer in 2015 shooting a dragon in his house at night. This casts doubt onto it, and then is only made worse when you see damning photos of how this fake dragon was created in a studio. Now the next one's a little bit grisly, so dragon lovers should skip forwards about 45 seconds or so. In 2012, 2 photographs of an unknown man, reportedly Chinese, holding a dead dragon in the street emerged. The man seems to cut open the dead dragon's belly with a cleaver, apparently to skin it. It's a bit gruesome, but how true is it? The puppy certainly seems interested. There doesn't appear to be much in the way of explanation or debunking on the internet for this one, just the photo. It could definitely be a dead snake with bits added on, but it's such an unusual colour and its neck seems to hold its position above the man's hand. It could just be a toy or a model, but it's a very well made one that definitely looks organic. I'll look at more other dragon images and videos in a future video. Number 1. Werewolves. This is the only one in the list that is entirely human, at least most of the time anyway. Originating overwhelmingly in European mythology, but with some stories from Africa and Asia too, the legend of the werewolf has been well known for centuries. The werewolf is a solid part of the modern horror scene, and that's partly thanks to its very detailed history. Like vampires, there's the fact that the creature is, or was, human. There are rituals involved, there are telltale signs of a werewolf's presence, and there are definitive ways to cure or kill one. And perhaps it's these rich characteristics and lack of mystery that make it such a realistic myth, and why many people, even to this day, believe it. A classic werewolf, I'm sure you know, is a human that turns into a wolf-like beast at night around the full moon. The more modern interpretation is that they can turn others into werewolves by biting them and shift their shape back to human form by morning. Although there's not so much in the way of photo and video evidence of werewolves as there is with Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts and so on, there are two different compelling things that I want to focus on. The first is from 2015 in Macedonia, a country just north of Greece. A Bulgarian farmer was ploughing a field when he claims he came across a sealed box. Inside was an unusually shaped skull, which the farmer says is that of a werewolf. In the Balkan countries such as Macedonia, there's a belief that a killed werewolf should be decapitated and the body burnt, and the story is that this skull belonged to such a werewolf. The skull in question isn't a normal wolf skull, nor is it human. Many have pointed out the similarity to a baboon's skull, though it does appear somewhat different with a shorter nose and different teeth. Experts say that it could be a deformed wolf with a condition called Paget's disease that changes the shape of the skull. But the farmer insists that it's a true werewolf skull. Has he come across proof? Or is he just an excellent hoaxer? Surely that box would have rotted under the mud for however many years. One interesting explanation for the legend is medical. There are various medical conditions that have been flagged as ways to explain at least part of historical cases of werewolfism. Well, that's not actually a word, lycanthropy is the proper word. For example, there's congenital porphyria, with sufferers showing sensitivity to light, a red tinge to their teeth, and behaviour displaying a removal from reality. Another condition is hypertrichosis, where a person will grow masses of extra body hair, again suggesting an explanation for one of the aspects of werewolves, the fur. There is also rabies to take into consideration, with symptoms of the virus ranging from extreme agitation, hallucinations, insomnia, and delirium. And don't forget the disease being passed from one to another, much like modern werewolves. All of these could, at least in part, explain the behaviour of a supposed werewolf. The only trouble with these medical explanations is that there's no one-size-fits-all solution, and ancient stories and reports of werewolves don't always coincide with these conditions, some of them rare and some of them impossible depending on each story's location and date. We may never truly know if the legend of the werewolf is just that, a legend, or if it's a real mythical creature hunting in our midst every full moon. And that's it from All Top 5s for this week. This was a great topic to cover, and I hope you enjoyed some of the angles that I took with it. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up, it really does help me out. You can subscribe for a new video every single Tuesday. Just click on the subscribe button. Please do remember to be polite and considerate when you're discussing all of these in the comments. We all have different views, and that's okay. So peace and love to each and every one of you, and I'll see you all next time on All Top 5s.